Hello and welcome to Three Questions with. Got my longtime friend Michael Barrows with us. And today in this segment, Michael's going to give you some advice and some tips on the real estate buying process. Michael, welcome to the show.
Hi, Kevin. Thanks for having me today.
So Michael, I asked you to come on the show today because, I sometimes people forget the importance of a real estate attorney when they're going to buy or sell a home. So I asked you to come on and just share some advice for me. So now, Michael, if I was going to put an offer in on a home, what's the role of the real estate attorney during the offer process?
Well, I think it's important to have an attorney right at the beginning, and mostly it's to kind of dot the I's and cross the T's. And what I mean by that is that's the starting point for any real estate transaction is the offer to purchase. So you want to make sure that the dates in there are achievable. And what I mean by that, there's a couple of dates in there. There's the closing date, and there's also the date that you need to obtain a mortgage by. And it's important that somebody reaches out to the loan officer and make sure that whatever dates you put in that offer to purchase is attainable, because if it's not, then you end up having to go back to the other side and asking them for extensions. So I always take the position, the less favors you ask for, the better.
So Michael, how about when we get to the purchase and sale agreement? What's the real estate attorney's role there in helping?
Well, in Massachusetts, the way this works is that the seller's attorney sends out the first draft to the buyer. And, they're pretty boilerplate clauses, so to speak, but there are some protections in there that need to be put in there, and those are going to be put in by the buyer's attorney. Protection of the deposit is probably foremost, making sure that if you can't get your mortgage by a certain date, that the monies are going to be refunded to you. If there's a delay in the closing process, let's say there's a title problem, the seller is missing a discharge, or any number of issues could come up, that you're able to continue on with the deal, but you want to make sure that you can only continue on with the deal if you get a corresponding extension to your mortgage commitment, which means that the rates haven't gone up. And you have to be careful, obviously, because if they have, buyers may be shut out from getting a mortgage. So you want to have those protections in there. And usually those are missed by the seller's attorney, because the seller's attorney's his interest is, or her interest is, to protect the interest of the seller and not the buyer.
I think you bring up a great point there, because often we're naive and we think, oh, there's a real estate attorney involved. But if it's a seller's real estate attorney, they're there to protect the seller's interest, right?
Exactly. Just like the buyer's attorney is there to protect the buyer's interest.
So, Michael, we get to the closing table, and as someone who's bought a house, it's a little overwhelming. You get handed a pen and sign here, and you're just in such a, hey, I'm buying a house today, and you just sign. It seems like this is where having you at the table protecting me is super important, because no one takes the time to read it, although you're supposed to. You're just like, okay, sign here, because the attorney told me to.
Yeah, so there's a couple of documents. I always think of the most important documents at the closing table, and that would be a document referred to as the closing disclosure, and that document has all the figures on it, and also the promissory note, which is your promise to pay back to the lending institution whatever amount that you borrowed at a certain rate over a certain period of time. So you want to make sure that you are getting the deal that you signed up for. For example, you signed up for a 30-year fixed rate note and the interest is 3%. That's what you got at the time. That's what you signed up for. That's what you're getting at the closing table. Looking at the numbers, interpreting the numbers, there's no reason, if you're an orthopedic surgeon, that you should be familiar with the mortgage process and how mortgages work, and just understanding, breaking down all of those figures so you understand what you're being charged at time of closing, prepaid interest, when the first mortgage payment is due, your escrow accounts, what you're paying for, what you're not paying for, and at the end of the day is, when can I move into the house? That's also important to know. And then, how do I get the keys? Equally as important to know. And the same goes for the seller. Well, when am I going to get my money? When can I cancel the insurance? All of those things are very important for the seller to know too. You cancel the insurance after you receive word that, we're on record, and then you can cancel the insurance. From the buyer's perspective, once you know that we're on record, then you can move into the house. That house is yours.
So Michael, one follow-up question on this. Now, if I'm buying a home, I have the right to choose whatever real estate attorney I want to use. I'm not obligated to use the banks or the mortgage companies or the realtors recommending someone. If I happen to be friends with you and I'm buying a home, I have a right to say I have an attorney. That true?
Absolutely, absolutely. They can't tell you who you should hire for an attorney. And it's funny because you actually are signing documents at time of closing that says that you had an opportunity to or not to select your own attorney to represent you at time of closing. So there are interests that the lender has that may be different from yours. Obviously their interest is making sure that they're first in line and there's no title issues, but there may be other issues out there that they don't really care about, that it's not important to them, but is very important to a buyer. So it is important to have independent legal counsel.
And that's a great way to end it. So Michael, how do people reach out to you? How can I learn more if they have questions about real estate?
They can call me, and my direct line is 617-723-1827, or they can email me. My email address is mbarrows, BARROWS, @devinebarrowslaw.com, and that's DEVINE BARROWSLAW.com.
Michael, I appreciate you taking a few minutes to jump on the show. And as always, thanks for being my friend.
Thanks, Kevin. Take care. Stay safe.